Hey, this is OXDF, and today we're going to be looking at CVE 2023-40028. It's a authenticated file read vulnerability in the Ghost blogging CMS software application. And I ran into this doing the LinkVortex box from HackTheBox, but I'm going to do this video where you need no knowledge of HackTheBox or access to HackTheBox, though if you do have it, you certainly can go there to play around with it yourself. Always recommend that. And we're going to look at this vulnerability not because it lit the world on fire or because it's particularly we're changing to our industry or anything, but because there are POCs out there to exploit it where you can run a script and read a file. But this is one where I took a look at the NIST page, trying to research and understand the vulnerability for the write-up, and looking at the Git commit where they patched the vulnerability. And I thought this would be a pretty good one to work backwards from what we can see there to develop our own POC, first manually, and then with a Python script to automate it. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to walk through the information available at a base level. We're going to manually exploit it, and then we're going to write a Python script to do just that. So let's go ahead and dive in. So we'll start here with the NIST page on the CVE, and the description is, Ghost is an open source content management system. Versions prior to 5.59.1 are subject to a vulnerability which allows authenticated users to upload files that are symlinks. This can be exploited to perform arbitrary file read on any file on the host operating system. So right away, I know I'm going to try to upload symlinks, and then if I can read those symlinks from somewhere on the content management system, somewhere within the web root, that they will return to me the actual contents of the file they point to. Scrolling down here, there's not, I don't know why these are duplicated. Sometimes these advisories are quite useful, but this one I didn't find super useful. But we're going to go to the commit into the tryghost/ghost repo that says to have fixed it. And in fact, you can see the commit message right here, fixed arbitrary file read via symlinks in content import. No, I don't need to follow you. Oops, let's go back. So scrolling down a little bit here, there's only 4 files changed. The first one is the ghost.core/package.json. These are the node modules that are imported by the application, and specifically we're changing the tryghost/zip application or package from 1134 to 1137. We probably could go find the source for this and look and see what changed in there to see exactly how they're changing the handling of zip files. But we're not gonna do it here. We're not gonna bother. We can continue without it. The next thing is a regression test. And so when you do testing on large code applications, the point is that you write some test that says, I expect this behavior to happen, and then you run your functions and show that it does happen. And that way, when you're making changes on later down the road, if you change part of the application that breaks that without you knowing it, when you run your test suite again, it'll fail and it'll say, oh wait, this doesn't work anymore. And you can go and address it right then rather than pushing out the bugs into the wild. So this one has, the it function right here is from the test suite. And so that is a function that says, this is a test function. I want you to run it. It's named cannot import a zip file with symlinks. So we right there have a pretty good idea. The vulnerability is going to be pushing a zip file up with symlinks. And then it calls this function where we're going to request.post, and it's going to go into an API query to db/. It sets some headers. It expects a JSON content type and response. The attach, it's going to attach something. It's going to call that something import file. And the file it attaches is going to be utils fixtures import symlinks.zip, which happens to be the next file we look at. And then we expect back a 415 response. And HTTP 415 is an unsupported media type error. So right away we can say, okay, if there's a symlink in my zip file, it's not a supported media type, we're done. Okay, so that right there, that gives us most of the information we need to actually make the request we need to try to exploit this. We can take a look at this symlinks.zip. In fact, let's do that. We'll grab view file. We will not copy. We will download raw file. Good, it's going to be downloading. And we'll go back real quick. And the last file is updating our yarn.lock file. This is another JavaScript thing describing dependencies. And you can see we're going from on the tryghost zip, we're going from 1134 to 1137. So nothing super useful there. Let's go ahead and dive into a terminal. If I move downloads symlink.zip here, if we do an unzip -L to take a look at symlinks, we can see it's just a single file. It's actually a single byte single file. and it's in content images malicious.jpg. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's go ahead and just unzip that. Even unzipping it, we can see links content images malicious JPEG is pointing to the root of my file system. That's not super useful if I'm trying to exploit and read a file, but we're not testing to see whether it can read files. We're just testing whether we block the upload. We can actually verify this with an ls-l on what content images malicious.jpg, and we can see this is a symlink with the L here, and that it's pointing to the root of my file system. And that's it. I think we have all the information we actually need to write an exploit here. First, let's craft ourselves a zip. I'm not going to use, since I'm trying to actually exploit this, I'm not going to use the slash. I'm going to want to use something more interesting. So let's remove that, and we will ln-s to create a symlink. We're going to link to etc password, because why not? And we'll put that in content, images, and oxdf.png. We can just double check that, and good, symlink pointing to etc password. Now we want to zip that and put that in place. So I'm going to run zip minus R to make it recursive, minus Y, which says if I run into a symlink, don't follow it and keep getting stuff, but just put the link in. Now we need a zip name, so we'll call it poc.zip, and we need a output, or what are we going to get? So we're going to put content in there. Now, you can see right away it added 3 items here. If I do an unzip minus L on POC, mine is slightly different than this above. The file is longer because there's 11 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 characters. I bet you it's doing some zip compression, which is actually on such a short thing making it longer. But basically, it's slightly longer than just the single character slash. But also, I've got these 3 these additional folders here that aren't there here. I don't think this is going to matter, but I'm going to keep it in mind because if something fails down the road, I want to think this is a place I might come back and check. All right, so I've got my POC. The next thing I need to do is figure out how to make, how to submit it. So the first thing we need to do is figure out where we're going to go. So let's see. We do ghost admin API. It just so happened that last week the box that retired on HackTheBox named Ghost was using Ghost CMS, and so I spent more time than I'm probably excited to admit digging around in that kind of environment. So I'm becoming more familiar with these API documentation. So the base domain here is going to be HTTP, in our case, just HTTP, the domain /ghost/API/admin, and I think they call it a resource. Let me see if I can find it on the page. Resource. Where is it? Somewhere. So here's an example of where you hit the domain ghost API admin and the resource, and that's what DB is going to be. Go ahead and check out using curl. We can get a new window here, and we can say curl http LinkVortex.HackTheBox /ghost/API/admin. If we just hit that, we're going to get a message that says resource not found. So we need to give it a resource, and so we just talked about, so we know it's going to be the DB resource. Now it's saying authorization failed, which makes sense. We haven't given it any kind of admin auth. If I just put some stuff on the end there, though, it goes back to resource not found. So we have identified, we've got the DB object, which is almost certainly what's being referenced in that text. So we need authentication. So let's take a look. I do have, let's see, this window here. I've got creds already. If you want details on exactly how I found the creds for the LinkVortex instance, there's a link to my blog post showing the whole solution to the box in the notes down here. But for this, we're just going to say we have login creds. And so I can even go here and inspect under storage, cookies. Did I lose it somehow? Maybe we're not actually logged in. We have to go grab the creds. Let's try it this way. We'll sign out. That's weird. I'm not sure why it didn't show up. We know I think I have them saved here. So it's admin at LinkVortex, and we sign in. And presumably we got a cookie. Okay, we did. I have no idea. I must have cleared that out somehow. I don't know what happened. Okay, so we'll come here, back to here, and we can say cookie. And I always like doing things like cookies and tokens in environment variables. And the reason is it just makes it easier for me to track it. Like it's just smaller and easier to keep in touch with as I'm doing commands. But like if I had to have this line on every line, it would just eat up a lot of space and make it hard to keep track of. So instead I'll do that. And then I can do on db/b for cookie. And then I can just do $cookie. And boom, I got nothing. Now that's interesting because you know, it's not giving me, when I remove the cookie, I get back unauthorized, and I add the cookie, and now I just get nothing. Let's add a -v to see what's going on. And oh, we're getting 301 moved permanently to db/. I actually think that was what we were looking at in the thing here. Did it do db/? So we probably could have just known that, but get rid of the -v and go to put a slash here. And okay, we got data. So we have done the GET request to /db. We want to do a post request to /db, and we want to give it our file. So we're going to do this again. We are going to do -F, I believe, for files. Is that right? Let's see, man curl -F. Where are you next? And form. Yeah, so processing data as form data. Yep, sweet. Okay, that's what I wanted. Get out of you. So -F, and then that our file data that we're going to upload, if you remember from the thing, it's called import file, and that's going to be equal to, and then I can use the @ and poc.zip, and that is going to say treat the contents of this file. That curl takes the @ says treat the contents of this file as the value there. And if I do that, okay, db nothing, problems nothing. That's maybe progress. So we'll say curl http LinkVortex.http/. Now, what is this going to be at? I know when I made the POC that I was putting it at content images oxdf.png. So that's a decent starting place to look. Boom, we got it. We didn't even need auth. It's just available for anyone to read there. So we have now successfully shown that we can read basically any file, because we can create this zip file with the symlink pointing wherever we want, and then we can use that to read the file. Obviously, the next step is I don't want to do this. I'm gonna use this to enumerate the box. If it's LinkVortex, if it's in the real world on a pen test, I'm gonna want to read many files, and without knowing the exact file to go to, I'm gonna have to do some exploring. I don't want to have to do the zip file blah 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 every time. So I'm gonna create a Python script. Let's do that. So we'll call code, open up VS Code. I'm going to go ahead. Yes, I trust me. Go ahead and create read.py. Seems is good. And I'm going to just kind of go through and outline the steps here. So first thing we're going to need to do is process inputs. We'll have to define the inputs as well. We're going to create zip in memory. And we'll talk more about that when we get there. We're going to have to log in to the site so we can get a cookie. We're going to post to API, and then we're going to read results. Maybe read and display results. So those are the things we just did manually. We can do those with Python. We'll import requests here because we're definitely going to need that. We're going to need sys to handle, if I was doing like a real POC that I was trying to put out to the world to make a generic one, I would handle this with argparse, but sys will be good enough for our purposes here. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm sure there'll be more imports along the way. So I'm going to say if len sys.argv is not equal to, and I don't know the number it's going to be, so let's just say 3. Then we will print usage. Oops. That, and then we'll see. The first sys.argv0 will be the file name that was run. And then we're going to have host, username, password, and file to read. Something like that. So it looks like this needs to be a 5. 1, 2, yeah, so we have 5 things to do. So if it's not 5, we're going to do that, and then we're going to sys.exit and be done. Inputs processed. Now, we're going to create a zip in memory. In fact, I did this, I don't know, not that long ago. Let's see if we can find it. Because we're basically going to copy from that. Because there's some stuff that you just have to do research on. So we're going to go oxdf.getlab.io. We're going to my own website in my video. We will do tags. I think it was called zip file is the name of the Python library. So hopefully, yep, Python zip file. I'm pretty sure it was zipping. Import zip file. Yeah. Okay. So I even have this video. I'll include a link to that as well. We wrote a very similar script here. There's just some of this stuff right here that like, I can show you sources for. I think I do in that video. I'll just say here, my source is my blog post, so you can go look at it. But I am going to grab this stuff right here. Grab all of this and put it down on some on note space I have on another screen here so that I can have that handy as we go back to write. The goal here is I don't want to write the zip file today. I think a lot of POCs are probably going to create a zip file, write it to disk, and then read the contents and upload it. And well, that works. It just doesn't strike my OCD. And I like that you can do stuff like that just all in memory using Python. So we're going to do that. So we'll say file name, and we're going to need to make a file name. Okay. Another thing we need to think about. We are going to upload. And if I upload, oxdf.png, the symlink to Etsy password, what happens if I upload another oxdf.png? I can actually tell you just from playing around with it manually that fails. It doesn't upload the new one. To prove that, we can make a new zip file with a new oxdf.png and have it point to Etsy hostname, and then try to upload it and then see what comes back. And it'll be Etsy password. So we want to create a random file name each time. So I'm going to do import random, and I'm going to do import string. And now my file name is going to be join. I'm going to take a list of things and join them. I'm going to say random.choices. And for that, I'm going to give it string.ASCII letters. And I'm going to say k equals 8. So I'm going to pick any 8 random letters. I'm going to join them into a string. And then I'm going to say plus.png. So now I'm going to make random 8 characters.png, my file name. File path is going to have to be content images file name, like that. So now I'll have my file path. I'm going to need a zip buffer, and that's going to be the thing I use. The buffer. This is going to be, so we have to import. So we'll say import IO, and IO is going to allow me to say IO dot what do I call this? Bytes IO. Yep, that's it. And this is going to create what Python treats as like a handle to a file. But that handle to a file is just going to be stored in memory. So it's going to give me a file in memory to mess with, or a buffer that acts like a file. I'm also going to need zip file. So we'll say import zip file. And now I can say with zip file.zip. I lost my, there it is, file. Hard to actually read off another screen while trying to do this. Zip buffer. Right as zip file like that. So now I've got a handle to a zip file that I'm going to be writing to. The first thing I need to do is create a zip info. If I just want to use the most basic, I can do that. If I just try to add a file to it, it'll create the zip info for it. But because I want to do some special things, namely make a symlink, I'm going to have to create this manually. So I'm going to say zip file dot zip info. Now I've got a zip info object, and now I'm going to give it, what do I want the name of the zip in the thing in the zip to be? Well, that's going to be file path. Okay. I'll say zip info dot create system, and that's going to equal 3, which I just happen to know is Unix from my previous experience doing this. I'm going to say zip info dot external attributes. And then I'm going to say or equals, and this is where I'm going to do 0xa. In fact, I'm just going to grab this off what I copied earlier. And this is what sets it to be a symlink. And you could also do this. There's another way to do this. This might not be 100% right, but it's something like 0 to make it octal 12777, I believe. So you could also do that, which is, I believe, the same thing. But then you'd have to up it by 16, something like that. So you could do that. This works fine. This is what I did in the past. So, and let's see. I've got that done. Now I need to write the file. So I can say zip file.write string zip info. And that's sort of the metadata about the file that's being written. And then the actual contents of it is just going to be file path. And that's because the symlink, the contents of the symlink file is just the path to the file. All right, so we've got all of that. Now I've got to do another important thing, which is rewind my buffer back to where it was so I can use it again. So I can say zip buffer. I could also close it and reopen it, but I'll just say seek 0. That looks good. Now I've got my buffer. I've got my zip file in memory with a file handle to it, basically. So now we need to log in. So we'll say session is equal to requests dot session ses dot post, and then this will going to be you know what I didn't do is process my inputs up here. Let's go back here and do that. So we're going to say hostname is equal to sys.argv1. I don't have to do this. I could just use stuff out of the array, but it just feels kind of ugly to do that. So we're going to make these real quick. V2, it just makes your code more readable. Password is equal to sys.argv3, and target file. Oh, we never actually, I never actually used this. Sys.argv4. Where do I actually need that? That is file name, file path. Not file path, that is target file. That makes a lot more sense now that I did that. So the zip info has the information about the path where it's going to be, which is content images random file name.png. The target file is the contents of the symlink where I'm pointing. So that makes more sense. All right, back down here. We now have, and actually I'm gonna make this even slightly wonkier. I'm gonna say this: if sys.argv1 with HTTP HTTP, else it's going to equal HTTP / oops, didn't mean that thing. HTTP / sys.argv1, like that. So if it doesn't start with HTTP, I'm going to add the protocol stuff to it. So now I can come down here and say hostname / and this, if I remember correctly, is ghost API admin session, like that, and then data is going to be username, password. So with that, I should now be logged in within my session and have the cookies necessary to do things. Post to the API. This will just be another one. Sesh.post, and I could capture the results of this if I wanted to try to keep track of it, but I'm just going to let it go for now. And this will be hostname / ghost / API / admin / DB / important second /. And then on here, I'm going to say files is equal to import file colon, and then this is going to be a tuple. And inside that tuple, I'm going to first have the name of the file I'm uploading, which really could be anything. Archive.zip. Now I'm going to have the contents of what I'm uploading. So that'll be zip buffer, like that. And then I'm going to need to give it the type. So application.zip. All right, that looks good. And assuming that all works, then I can do, well, I guess we can come down here after our read and display results. I'll say response is equal to sesh. I don't even need sesh. We'll just to show it, we can do request.get. This will be hostname / and then what do we want? That'll actually just be file path. So we'll put this here like that, and now we'll read the file path there. And we can, let's just print response.text, and we save that. Come over here. Let's see, where is a good terminal? We do Python read.py. We need a host name, so that's LinkVortex.HackTheBox. We need a username and password. Let's grab those from, the username is admin@linkvortex.HackTheBox, and the password is, let me just grab this from some notes elsewhere, boom, boom. And let's do Etsy hostname. And ooh, we have no io.byte bytes. All right, fix that. Boom. We got presumably the output of hostname. Let's look at the host file. We got it. Password. Nice. What happens if I put in something that doesn't exist? Not found. That's kind of cool. Is that a minus b? Is that a 4? Whoa, that's not what I meant to do. Let's do here. We'll do this. I'm going to do Python -i, and that's going to open up an interpreter after my thing runs, and so I can say response, and it's a 404. Okay. What happens if I do etsy shadow? Do I have access to that? No. And response is a 500. Okay. So let's see. We can add a little bit more down here. So if response.status code equals 200, print response.text. If response.status code is equal to 404, print file not found. And what was the target file? Yep. And elif response dot status code is equal to 500, print unable to access target file. Boom, we save that. And now we run without -i. If we do, make sure. So actually etsy password still works. Yep. If we do etsy path, we get that file's not found. If we do etsy shadow, unable to access. So perfect. I'm going to go ahead and call it here. This was, again, nothing too hard or complicated, just sort of working up, so seeing the things we could see in the Git, building ourselves a manual one, and then using that to make ourselves a Python script. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you found this useful, and I appreciate you staying to the end. I'll talk to you next time.